Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're covering a few different things. On one hand, there are some cards I want to take a look at because of some things that are coming out in the near future. The next set that we'll be getting in the TCG is called Maze of the Master, bringing with it some really cool cards. Now, even though we have talked about some of these cards in the past, it's always interesting to go back and see how the price is continuing to change as we get closer and closer to the release date. We did also finally get announced the next Battles of Legend set for later this year, and it looks really amazing. And of course, we do have some more cards that are trending because of how players are looking to use them in the current format, which is causing several other price spikes. Let's get started. Okay, so kicking things off, let's take a look at 7th Ascension. Now, in March, we have Maze of the Master coming out, and with it comes 7th Tachyon, which is a new search card where you reveal a monster in your extra deck between number 101 and number 107, and then you can search for a monster from your deck whose level matches that monster's rank, and then also shares either the same type or attribute. Now, over in the OCG, this card is a really big thing in Ryziel. They play either number 102 or 104 in order to search for a level 4 light monster, or they can reveal number 105 to search for a level 4 fire as well. Now, over in the OCG, this card is absolutely necessary in order for Ryziel to function, since they have Bonfire limited to 1. Here in the TCG though, Bonfire is at 3 right now, so there's a bit less of a reason to play the 7th cards right away. I think the general consensus among the players is that Konami is going to hit Bonfire on the next ban list in order to create more of a demand for the new 7th Tachyon, which will help to sell Maze of the Master. Now, with 7th Ascension, this is something that was originally not worth very much when it first came out in Duels from the Deep, but the card has been worth something ever since 7th Tachyon was first revealed. This card has just one printing as an ultra rare. It first climbed up pretty steadily over time, first to around $12, then $20, and then $25. Now, however, the card is actually up at around $40 a piece, with very few quantities available on TCG Player. With this one, it's definitely a bit of a gamble, right? On one hand, it's possible that Konami could choose to reprint it in Maze of the Master itself, which would obviously cause the price to come down quite a bit. Or alternatively, they could choose not to hit Bonfire, which would result in this package being in less demand than originally expected, since it does play into Droll a lot harder. However, I do think that if Bonfire is hit, and this card doesn't get reprinted, this card would become extremely expensive for as long as Ryziel is a deck in the game, and I could admittedly see this card hitting around the $60 mark quite easily. So there's one other card related to 7th Ascension I want to talk about, and it's number C102 Archfiend Seraph. Now, admittedly, this isn't something that ever really gets summoned, so we won't even bother talking about its on-field effect. However, we talk about it strictly because it's a level 5 light monster that you can reveal off of 7th Ascension, and this card lets you search for Artifact Lancia. Lancia is a really strong side deck card at the moment because of Malice, and it's only going to get stronger with the new Malice support coming in Alliance Insight, which is the next core set. That said, since people are playing 7th Tachyon anyways, some players in the OCG are choosing to run this in their extra deck, as well as a single main deck copy of Lancia, so that you are much better prepared to face off against Malice. Unfortunately, number C102 has extremely limited availability in terms of printings. It was only ever printed in Primal Origin, and then reprinted in the Megatins back in 2015. With this one, it is something that we saw spike in price back towards the end of last year. The price has actually stayed relatively high. The supers are still around $6 to $7 each, a decent amount considering that it's the card's lowest rarity version. However, what's really crazy is the ultimate rare printing, which has skyrocketed again recently. These were around $20 for a while, but the cheapest ones on TCG Player as of the time I'm filming this are around $40, though based on the sold listings it seems to be roughly a $30 card. This is something that I think is going to be a bit difficult for Konami to just include in a side set like a Battles of Legend or a Quarter Century Stampede. I think it would just be super out of place. Instead, I do think this card could be potentially included in OTS Tournament Pack 28 as a common, though obviously it's just pure speculation. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MSTmerch.com. Now, over at MSTmerch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Up next, let's briefly take a look at Celestial Double Star Shaman. So this is an interesting one. It's currently being hyped up because of the Yummy deck, which is a new strategy that's just about to come out over in the OCG. Now on Synchro Summon, this card lets you summon up to 4 level 2 non-tuner monsters from your hand or graveyard in defense position with their effects negated, but then you're locked into synchros for the rest of the turn. Now on one hand, I guess this could be interesting. You could make this and then revive a bunch of the Yummy synchro monsters from your graveyard in order to try to make a big push. However, I'm not really convinced by this card. It stops you from going into the Link 1 for the rest of the turn, and it only brings back the synchros and not your level 1 bodies. So it just seems like it's really limiting and it's not really what the deck needs. In order to really make use of this card, you'd have to play like non-Yummy monsters that are level 2s, and I just don't know if that's the way to go. This card has theoretically always had a lot of combo potential, but it's never really found a deck that's been able to abuse it, and I don't think Yummy is the thing that's going to break it. Anyways, Double Star Shaman has been getting some attention over the last week or so. There actually hasn't been too much movement in terms of like price, as the card was a couple of dollars before. It's now up to around $3 to $4. However, the card has actually moved quite a bit in terms of quantity, with tons of sold listings on TCG Player as people are trying to grab the card early. Definitely not something I would be trying to pick up if you want to be safe, just in case someone does find some crazy Yummy combo that does use this card. It's not a horrible card to pick up for only a couple of dollars when it only has the one printing. However, this is definitely not something that I'd be investing into a ton of copies of. Alright, so I think this is a card we talked about not that long ago, but I feel like it's important to bring it up again. We have Primite Dragon Ether Beryl. So this card is of course one of the main cards that makes the entire Primite engine function. It accesses either Lordly Load or Drill Beam, and it adds itself back to your hand as well. This card is one of the key pieces that allows the engine to function in the Blue Eyes strategy, as it also allows you to access the Blue Eyes Link 1. The reason we want to talk about this card is because Konami just revealed the new Battles of Legends set coming out later this year, and in it they have confirmed that Lordly Load is actually going to be getting an early reprint. This is definitely unexpected, but it's going to make the Blue Eyes deck at full power a lot more accessible to a lot of players. However, I do think that we have to take a look at Ether Barrels now. I personally think this is going to be a $60 Ultra within the next couple of months. This card came out later than Lordly Load, coming in Supreme Darkness. I think theoretically, even though it would get reprinted in the tins, it wouldn't be reprinted until like the 2026 tins. We have to remember that when one piece of an engine, usually the more expensive piece, goes down because it gets reprinted, it does tend to drive the prices of all of the other cards in the engine up, and that elasticity is going to be even stronger when it's a brand new, in-demand, already expensive card with limited availability. Now, to be fair, Konami could completely devastate all of us by giving us an extremely early reprint of Ether Barrel. That would literally be a few months after set release, and they still do want to sell Supreme Darkness, so I don't think that happening is really likely at all. I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon, so this card might actually already be up in price by the time that you see this on Thursday. Ether Barrels right now are around $40. If you don't already own them, but the upcoming reprint of Lordly Load is making you want to play the engine, definitely pick these up, as I am fully expecting them to shoot up in price very soon. On to some meta trends here. The next card we have is Buster Dragon. So as we discussed before, the Buster Blader engine is something that has become popular as a budget engine played alongside the Blue Eyes strategy. Of course, the Primite cards are still pretty expensive, and even though the reprint for Lordly Load is now announced, that's still 4 months away, so players are probably going to be keeping an eye on different budget engines to use until then, and of course the Buster Blader one is still pretty strong. Buster Dragon is a key part of the Buster Blader lock, as it turns all of your opponent's monsters on the field into dragons so that they can be negated by the Buster Blader fusion. So in my mind, this is a bulk card, right? I remember when it first got reprinted in Ghost from the Past, no one cared about this card. It was literally like 25 cents. However, it has actually been quite a while since the card was reprinted, so it's not something that you'll just happen to run into in someone's trade binder at your locals. Both versions of the cards are ultra rares, but either the original or reprint is going to cost you around $6 to $8 per copy. Do keep in mind that this card is just played at 1, and it's not even used in what is generally considered the best variant of the deck, so don't expect this card to get any pricier. Rather, it's something for you to dig up out of your bulk and try to offload while it is seeing some hype. Up next, let's take a look at Gravekeeper's Inscription. So this is an interesting side deck card that hasn't seen too much competitive success. The big restriction is that you have to activate it at the start of your main phase 1. So if you draw into it later in the turn, this is a dead card. But if you open with it, it lets you stop both players from either activating card effects in the graveyard, banishing cards from the graveyard, or special summoning monsters from the graveyard. So depending on the matchup, this card could shut your opponent down completely and stop them from playing during your turn. As you could stop Blue Eyes and Maiden of White from coming out of the graveyard, you can stop Malice from banishing cards with White Binder or Bestials, and you can also shut down the Fiendsmith engine as well. On top of that, looking a little bit forward, this card could be a really strong side deck option against decks like Orcust and Dragon Rulers as well. So I think this card first saw play in the top cut of YCS Orlando, and since then it seems to have been popping up in more and more side decks gradually. Fortunately, this card has two different printings, as it was a secret rare in Photon Hypernova and then got reprinted in the tins as well. Now, ever since that tin reprint, this card was literally under $1 each, but over the course of the last few weeks, with the hype it's seen recently, this card is up to around $6 to $7 for either version. Definitely something to keep an eye on because it could be a very useful card depending on how the format shapes up. It might be a good idea to pick up a playset of this card for yourself to use just in case. And finally, the last card I want to take a look at for today is Vermillion Dragon Mech. So this card is a generic level 9 machine synchro with two different effects. One, it can banish a tuner from your hand, field, or graveyard to pop a card on the field, and also if it's destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you add a banished tuner of yours back to your hand. So with this one, there isn't like a single deck that I saw that was using it, I just saw that the card was trending. The two strategies I'm thinking that could potentially make use of the card are Blue Eyes and Crystons. With Blue Eyes, of course, this card is pretty easy to make with Blue Eyes and any one of your level 1 tuners, and then in Crystron, you are machine locked a lot of the time, so this might be one of the better options that you have available. Now either way, I think having access to that spot removal with the potential to add follow-up to your hand is pretty strong. With this card, it has two different printings. It got that really accessible printing as an ultra rare in Dual Devastator. Those printings are literally like 25 cents. I don't know why, I really don't like the way that those ultras look. The nicer version is the original secret rare from Invasion Vengeance. These were only a couple of dollars before, but they are now up to around $6 to $7 each. We don't know for sure if this is something that either Blue Eyes or Crystron or maybe something else is going to be running for sure, but if you are interested in either deck, it's probably a good idea to pick up an Ultra or two to have available for yourself to use. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. I think the big news from the last couple of days has definitely been the Battles of Legend set coming out. The chibi arts look really cool and I'm super excited to get all of those new cards, especially Punk. I really love the way that the Punk cards look, but Orcust is looking like it'll be a top tier contender as well, so I'm super excited to see that. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.